Have you ever had one of those mornings where you step outside, coffee in hand, totally ready to take on the day, but then stop dead in your tracks because something is so outrageously wrong that your brain just short-circuits trying to process it? Yeah, that was me. One calm, sunny morning, I opened my front door, keys in hand, and froze. Right there, parked sideways across my entire driveway, was a shiny silver SUV, not just blocking me in a little. No, this thing was positioned like it was part of a military blockade. And it wasn't just any SUV. It belonged to the one and only neighborhood tyrant herself, HOA Karen. If you've ever lived under the rule of an HOA, you already know there's always that one person who treats it like their personal kingdom. That was Karen. She didn't just serve on the HOA board. She was the board. She strutted through the neighborhood like a self-appointed sheriff, armed with a clipboard and a mission to ruin someone's morning over the smallest infraction. Trash bins left out too long? Fine. Grass too tall by half an inch? Warning letter. So when I saw her SUV parked across my driveway, I didn't need to guess what was happening. This wasn't a mistake. Karen was making a point. And why? Because I had the nerve, the audacity, to repaint my own mailbox without getting her royal approval first. That's right. We were at war over a mailbox. I'd gone for a clean matte black, nothing flashy, but apparently it wasn't community approved. She'd thrown a fit during the last HOA meeting, demanding I repaint it according to her sacred standards. I ignored her. And now this was her revenge. At first, I honestly laughed. Who blocks someone's driveway over a mailbox? Surely she couldn't be serious. But when I knocked on her door, Karen answered with that smug grin, the kind that instantly makes your blood pressure spike. "Oh, did you need to leave?" she asked, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Well, maybe next time you'll follow the rules like everyone else." That was it. No apology, no explanation. Just that smug look of triumph, like she'd just conquered Rome. I told her to move her car. She shook her head slowly and said, "Nope. HOA rules come first. Maybe spend the day fixing that mailbox instead." Then she slammed the door in my face. That's when I realized this wasn't just another petty power play. This was a full-blown declaration of war. I stood there staring at her SUV like it was some kind of monument to her ego. My car sat trapped behind it, useless, while I imagined her inside, sipping tea, feeling proud of herself for asserting her authority. For a second, I thought about waiting her out. Maybe she'd move it once she'd gotten her power trip out of her system. But then I thought about every single time she'd pulled something like this before. The warning notices, the passive-aggressive emails, the constant nitpicking that made everyone in the neighborhood dread her. No, I was done letting her win, so I pulled out my phone and called the non-emergency police line. Calmly, I explained that my driveway was blocked by a vehicle that wasn't mine, and the owner was refusing to move it. The dispatcher didn't even sound surprised, probably not her first Karen call of the day. She asked for my address and said an officer would be on their way. While I waited, I paced. Every so often, I glanced at Karen's window, half expecting to see her peeking out from behind the curtain, watching me stew. But nothing. Curtain stayed closed. She was probably inside rehearsing her next speech about community order. About 20 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. Out stepped a tall officer in mirrored sunglasses, calm but alert. I explained the situation, pointing toward the silver SUV blocking me in. The officer gave a short nod and walked up to Karen's front door. At first, no answer. Then, after a long, deliberate pause, the door creaked open. And there she was, arms folded, chin high, already on the defensive. "Yes, officer?" she said sweetly. "Ma'am, is this your vehicle blocking the driveway?" he asked. "It is," she replied, smiling smugly. "And I'm the HOA president. That driveway belongs to the community. He has to comply with HOA standards." I almost lost it right there. Community standards? Since when did the HOA own my driveway? The officer wasn't buying it either. His tone sharpened. "Ma'am, that's private property. You're illegally blocking access. Move the vehicle immediately." Karen's confident smile faltered for just a second, but she quickly straightened up. "Actually, I don't think I will," she said coolly. "He's been violating HOA rules, and until he fixes it, he's not going anywhere." The officer just stared at her for a moment, clearly trying to decide if she was serious. Then he said firmly, "Ma'am, if you don't move your vehicle, it will be towed, and if you interfere, you will be arrested." That got her attention. Her smirk faded. She blinked, clearly realizing things weren't going the way she expected. But of course, Karen wasn't one to back down easily. "Go ahead," she snapped. "Tow it. I dare you." The officer gave her one of those slow, professional nods and reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 32, requesting tow service for an illegally parked vehicle." That's when the tone shifted. Karen's posture stiffened. Her arms were still crossed, but her confidence was cracking. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker in her eyes. A few minutes later, the distant growl of a tow truck echoed down the street. Neighbors started to peek out their windows, some even stepping outside to watch. The flashing lights reflected off the shiny silver paint of her SUV like a spotlight on her downfall. It was as if the entire block had been waiting for this exact moment. Karen's SUV sat there like a monument to arrogance until the tow truck rumbled to a stop right in front of my driveway. The driver climbed out, clipboard in hand, and gave a polite nod to the officer. Within seconds, he was lowering the metal hooks toward her vehicle. That's when the inevitable happened. Karen completely lost it. "You can't do this!" she shouted, storming down her porch steps with her bathrobe flapping behind her like a cape. "This is my neighborhood! I make the rules here!" The officer stepped forward, calm but commanding. "Ma'am, step back. The vehicle is being lawfully towed." But Karen didn't hear a word. She was too busy flailing her arms, trying to block the tow truck. The driver just sighed and kept working. Clearly not his first rodeo with an angry homeowner. "Touch my car and I'll sue all of you," she screamed, her face turning the color of a stop sign. The officer warned her one last time, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Ma'am, step aside now. If you continue interfering, you'll be placed under arrest." Instead of backing down, Karen doubled down. Classic her. She shoved past the officer and grabbed the tow truck's heavy chain with both hands, clinging to it like she could stop a machine with pure entitlement. That was the final straw. The officer moved in, gently but firmly pulling her away. She resisted, thrashing and yelling about her rights as HOA president while her voice cracked under the strain. By now, nearly the whole neighborhood had gathered. People whispered from their driveways, phones in hand, recording every second. For years, Karen had bullied everyone, threatening fines for harmless things like kids' bikes left on lawns, scolding retirees about garden gnomes, even trying to shut down barbecues because they weren't HOA approved. And now here she was, screeching and fighting like a spoiled child while justice rolled right over her. The officer finally clicked the handcuffs around her wrists, reading her rights as she kicked and yelled in disbelief. The tow truck driver, unfazed, finished hooking up her beloved SUV and lifted it into the air. Watching her precious vehicle dangle there while she stood cuffed was surreal. The self-proclaimed queen of the HOA was finally dethroned, and everyone knew it. The whole street fell silent except for the clinking of metal chains. The tow truck rolled away, Karen's SUV swaying slightly behind it as if it were waving goodbye to her reign of terror. The sound echoed through the cul-de-sac, the final punctuation mark on years of tension. Meanwhile, Karen sat in the back of the patrol car, still shouting through the open window. "This isn't over!" she cried, voice hoarse and cracking. "I'll have all of you fined. I run this neighborhood!" But nobody cared anymore. In fact, a few neighbors actually clapped as the officer shut the door on her. I just stood there, speechless, half in shock, half relieved. For months, maybe years, she had ruled through fear, making everyone walk on eggshells. But now, seeing her powerless, I realized something huge. People like Karen only have authority because others let them. The second you hold them accountable, their entire empire crumbles. As the police car drove off and the tow truck disappeared around the corner, the crowd slowly dispersed. Some neighbors shook their heads in disbelief. Others exchanged relieved smiles. Mr. Thompson, an older gentleman from down the street, shuffled over and clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Son," he said with a grin, "I never thought I'd see the day. You did the whole neighborhood a favor. That's when it hit me. I hadn't just stood up for myself. I'd stood up for everyone who had suffered under Karen's ridiculous power trips. The gratitude on their faces said it all. Over the next few days, word spread fast. Everyone knew Karen had been charged with disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. On top of that, she was slapped with a hefty fine for illegally blocking private property, and her SUV sat impounded at the local lot, racking up storage fees by the day. Without her car, and without her illusion of authority, she wasn't nearly as intimidating. Then came the real turning point. At the next HOA meeting, for the first time in years, people showed up, not to cower but to vote. The decision to remove Karen as HOA president wasn't even close. The motion passed in record time. The board she once controlled unanimously agreed her behavior had gone too far. For the first time since I'd moved in, the HOA actually felt like a community again. Meetings turned into discussions instead of lectures. Rules started making sense. People smiled more. The tension that used to hang over the neighborhood finally lifted. As for me, I celebrated in my own way. I repainted my mailbox again, this time in a bright, bold red. Not because I needed to, but because I could. And you know what? No one complained. A few neighbors even came by to say how good it looked. Karen, on the other hand, avoided me completely once she returned. No more morning patrols with her clipboard. No more glares from her porch. She just stayed quiet, keeping to herself. The self-proclaimed queen had lost her crown. Looking back now, it's almost funny how something as trivial as a mailbox color turned into the downfall of the neighborhood's biggest bully. But that's how it usually goes with people like her. Give them an inch, and they'll take the whole street. Stand your ground, though, and suddenly they're not so powerful anymore. And for me, standing my ground meant watching justice play out right in front of my house, seeing her car hauled off and her tyranny finally come to an end. Wow, what a day. Can you believe how that all unfolded? If you enjoyed this story and want more wild HOA drama, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. I want to hear from you, too. Would you have stood up to Karen like I did, or kept your head down to avoid the chaos? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And hey, don't forget to smash that like button if you enjoyed seeing justice served. It helps the channel grow. And there are plenty more crazy stories just like this one coming your way.